Hello, hi, it's Joshua here.
Shalom.
Hello, how are you?
Baruch Hashem.
Good. Can I ask about Shmini Atzeret, please?
Sure.
I wanted to know if there were a minyan for a Machon Shilo minyan on Shmini Atzeret, as I understand there has been in the past. What would the Kriyat HaTorah be, and what would the Haftarah be, and would there be Hakafot?
Well, this is it's an interesting question. The truth is the question does not pertain only to Shmini Atzeret, or as it is also known as Simchat Torah, which is also a perfect example of what we've been discussing now. It really pertains, one could ask this question with regards to the entire year. Let me explain. The original minhag, the original practice, reading the Torah on a weekly basis and on an annual basis was the annual cycle was not the original format of this mitzvah. This was developed in Bavel at a slightly later time, as the Talmud itself describes in a couple of places. That in Eretz Yisrael, it says they read the Torah or they complete the Torah every 3 years. In other sources, we see that the more precise figure is 3.5 years. So every 7 years, every Shemitah, they completed the Torah twice in Eretz Yisrael, which means that the Torah reading on a weekly basis was considerably shorter, which we could discuss at length. I don't know if this is the time and the place, but there are certainly some advantages to having a shorter Torah reading. On the other hand, if one wants to complete the Torah annually, the entire Torah, then one has to have a longer Torah reading. And the minhag in Bavel grew up in such a way that the Torah was completed annually, and the day on which this was done became known as Simchat Torah for this reason. Because the Jews, of course, naturally are happy and joyous that they have been zocheh to read the Torah, to complete the Torah one more year, one more cycle. And they express this joy in various ways by means of hakafot, dancing, celebrating, having a kiddush, after davening or before davening or in the middle of davening, what have you. These are all expressions of normal, intuitive simcha of the Jewish people when it comes to celebrating their connection to the Torah. But it is clearly a fact that this was not the case in Eretz Yisrael in ancient times. Of course, you have to keep in mind also that in Chutz La'aretz, where to this day Yom Tov is celebrated for 2 days, you have Sukkot, which lasts 9 days, and Simchat Torah is the 9th day, and is a separate day from Shmini Atzeret. So you have Shmini Atzeret and you have Simchat Torah, 2 separate days. And you can also therefore divide the various things that you're trying to say and complete and achieve in the Beit Knesset. You can divide that between 2 separate days. And this is what we find in the Zohar. In the Zohar, it discusses the 9 days of the Chag of Sukkot. A clear indication where the Zohar was authored, and describes the 9th day of Simchat Torah. But this 9th day did not exist in Eretz Yisrael. In fact, it doesn't exist to this day. Because the reality in Chutz La'aretz was 9 days, the 9th day of which was called Simchat Torah, to this day in Eretz Yisrael, to this very day, most people, I think it's fair to say, refer to Shmini Atzeret, which is the original name of the day, by the term Simchat Torah. It's a fact, it's a matter of habit. Now, there's absolutely nothing wrong. Of course, there's nothing wrong with completing the Torah according to the annual cycle. I said there are advantages and disadvantages to that system, which we can go into if people are interested. But there's nothing wrong with that, and it is also possible to imagine doing things differently. If there were to be a regular minyan of a sibur, of a community of people who wanted to do things according to the ancient system of Eretz Yisrael, reading the Torah, shall we say, every 3.5 years, then that could be done. And one imagines in that case, if there was such a regular minyan that worked in that way over a period of years, they would cover the Torah, but wouldn't necessarily end and begin at the end of Sukkoth. So if there were to be a minyan in a few days' time, and due to the current situation in Israel with the lockdown and other realities, that is not a possibility, and for other reasons it's complicated. But if that were to be a possibility, then it would depend, seeing that we haven't got at this point in time a community that functions in that way. It would have to be discussed by the tzibur, what they want to do, how they wish to conduct themselves. Because when it comes to such decisions, it's the will of the majority of the tzibur that should decide, as it is with many other considerations. For example, if most of the tzibur wants a certain person to be the shliach tzibur on Rosh Hashanah, and the minority want another person to be the shliach tzibur, you go by the majority of the tzibur, and the same would apply here.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. We would also like to suggest the following opportunity to our viewers. If you identify with Rabbi Bar-Hayim's message and would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with the rabbi in honor or memory of a loved one, if you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.